welcome to Book Obsession. I'm Ashley Gunn. So this next review is purposely the very first review I'm doing on a same-sex couple. I chose this series because it was important to me that the books that I review that have same-sex couples in them both are treated with respect, but also are treated the same as any heterosexual relationship. I don't want to review books where it's honestly silly. Some of the books I've read, it's like the women are kissing and then they wake up fully satisfied and they just completely skip the sex scenes, and it irritates me, quite frankly. I feel like for some reason there's a double standard on relationships between a man and a woman, and quite frankly I've even read books where it involves gay men and they have sex scenes, but for some reason there's something about two women having sex where either the authors don't know how to write the sex scene so they skip it, or maybe they don't feel comfortable with it. I'm not really sure, but for some reason it's always missing. And then I came across this series and I felt like it had a good storyline. It feels a little trapped between a short story and a novel. Maybe that's just me. I would love if these books were longer and I got to spend more time with the characters, but I also understand that if these were intended to be short stories, then, I mean, I don't get to choose how the author writes books. I just really liked the fact that they had real relationships with issues, and that they were books that if you replaced one of them with a man, there would be no difference in that relationship than these relationships. I hope that makes some kind of sense. So with that in mind, this series is going to be Lorelie Brown's Belladonna Ink. I don't know how long this series is going to be, because this series, the characters are not interlocked in any way. So realistically, she could keep adding on to it forever. The first book is a little interesting in that one of the women are not 100% sure about their sexuality and questions it through the book. I want to make it known that that is the first book, but in the second book, both women are out, know that they're gay, and their families accept it and stuff like that. And I just point that out so that you don't worry about that being a theme that runs through the books. So the first book is going to be about Perry and Rachel. Perry is from India, and she's here on a visa. She wants to get a citizenship, and I believe it's so that she can make her own company. Rachel is going through some personal stuff. She has a lot of student debt and things like that, but also she suffers from an eating disorder, and I'm going to say a couple of things about that in just a minute. But that's how the relationship gets started, is Perry mentions wanting her citizenship at a party, and Rachel kind of says, why don't you marry me? And then they actually meet and discuss how they can help each other, what each person would get out of it, what would be expected, and then decide to get married. So before we go on too far, I want to discuss Rachel's eating disorder, because the way Lorelie handled this was brilliant. I will say that this was the very first book I read where the woman actively suffered from an eating disorder. And I just point that out because it is possible that other people have written about it, and very similarly, I just have never read that. And the way that Lorelie makes it where Rachel is suffering from this eating disorder as an adult, not a teenager, and I think that's important because adults suffer from eating disorders too, not just teenage girls. Rachel has had help in the past, goes to therapy, and still struggles. And so I like the fact that she knows about it, she actively works on it, but it's still a struggle for her. And then also, the end of this book, the way that Lorelie has Perry handle the eating disorder with Rachel is incredible. I mean, I did not expect it, but absolutely fabulously well written. Just from my personal perspective, I loved that part. So basically what you have is Perry and Rachel decide they're going to live together. That way Rachel doesn't have to spend money on her rent and she can start paying off more of her student loans. And Perry's completely okay with that because they're going to need to live together anyways for citizenship tests and stuff like that, get to know each other better, all that jazz. Anyways, Perry's mother ends up deciding to come down from India to help plan the wedding. And that's what kind of shakes everything up, because then Perry and Rachel actually have to share a room, which kind of pushes them closer to a relationship. I don't want to go into like a ton of stuff because it's all written in the book. But Rachel doesn't question her sexuality as much as she hasn't had any meaningful relationships with men, and her eating disorder influences her relationships, but she does find herself attracted to Perry automatically. Like, that's not something itself that she questions. And then Perry, I hope I'm pronouncing that right. I could really be butchering this person's name. It's P-A-R-I. You know, I'm really sorry if I am messing that up. Anyways, Perry has been in a relationship where a woman was married and left her husband, and then Perry and her dated, and so Perry's really questioning the relationship and anything that she feels and anything like that, because she doesn't want to end up in a relationship where she's basically a gay test, whether or not the person actually is straight or not. And I completely understand that. I mean, that has to be a really tough situation to be in. So I like that they were like legitimate situations, legitimate issues, relationship issues, and things like that. And again, the way that the sex scenes were actual sex scenes that could happen between a man and a woman, I also thought was important because, you know, why should they be written to be, you know, almost like roommates that kiss? So that stood out to me the most. From here, we're going to go to the next book. And again, these characters have nothing to do with each other. This book is going to be Brooke and Keightley, Keighley. So if I'm saying it wrong, you guys are going to know this whole review. Anyways, this book is going to be about Brooke and Keightley. Keightley wants a date for Thanksgiving because she has relatives that are obnoxious and constantly asking about relationships and stuff like that. And her mom agrees. Now, Keightley's out. She knows she's gay. Her mom knows she's gay, all of that stuff. So it's not an issue at all for her to bring a date to Thanksgiving. And then Brooke actually puts out an ad that, you know, if you want to bring someone to your meal where she has, you know, pink hair and tattoos, and she puts it in the ad, and it's really funny and cute. And that's really how they meet, is Brooke is going to go to Thanksgiving with Keightley. Now, I really love the whole opposite attracts thing with, you know, the accountant and the tattoo artist. But also, Brooke and Keightley hit it off on Thanksgiving Day and decide to actually try a relationship. And that's what this book is. Their relationship. So although they're not going to be together a year in the book, you are going to know that there's going to be some relationship challenges. Keightley has a tendency to hold on too tight, and she jumps in. So for her, you know, the second they're dating, you know, they should be living together. They're in love. They're going to buy a house and have their first child. And Brooke has intimacy issues. So obviously when you have someone like Keightley and someone like Brooke, you're going to have some clashes happening. So those are all going to happen in the books. I really just loved the fact that there was legitimate relationship issues. And the end of this book is just unbelievably cute. I think Lorelie writes the endings of her books amazingly well. So anyways, the only downside I found to either of these books, honestly, was just that they were short. I wish that they were longer, and I know that Lorelie could have written amazing things for these characters because I loved everything she wrote so far. And again, the way that the eating disorder thing, I don't know, I really, really loved the way that she handled that. So, alright, if you like this review, go ahead and like it. If you have any questions, comments, recommendations, put that in the recommendation section. I do want to tell you guys, I will be adding a playlist for same-sex relationships so that if you are looking for books like that, you'll be able to click on it and find them. As of right now, this will be the only book on that playlist. I do read books that have same-sex relationships in them, and I've actually read a couple that I really like. I'll try to do reviews on those. If you like my videos, go ahead and subscribe, and I will see you all again soon. Thank you for joining me.